place. You're here for school, summer stress, and your teen. This is the family education webinar for July, and it's made possible with funding from the Mother Cabrini Health Foundation. So again, if you have any questions, please put them into the Q&A. And at the end, we'll be asking folks to raise their hand if they'd actually like to unmute and ask their question out loud. So until then, we'll all be on mute and we'll just listen and learn to Miss Susan. And she's going to take it away from here. So Susan.
Thanks, Whitney. All right, so good evening, everyone, and welcome, like Whitney said, to today's webinar, School, Summer, Stress, and Your Teen. My name is Susan Fisher, and I'm the School and Community Liaison for the School Mental Health Resource and Training Center here at Mahaney's. Today's webinar focuses on understanding and identifying the impact of stress on high school students. We're going to be focusing on high school students, but probably some of this can be applied to all the different ages that we are dealing with. We'll be talking about summer stress and school stress particularly. So just a little bit of background, the mission of the Mental Health Association in New York State is to improve the lives of individuals, families, and communities by raising mental health awareness, ending stigma and discrimination, and promoting wellness and recovery. The School Mental Health Resource and Training Center was established by Mahaney's with funding from New York State to help schools implement a law requiring mental health instruction as part of their K-12 health curriculum. So tonight, I'd like to discuss and come to a common understanding of what mental health is. We're going to discuss everyday stress and how it impacts your physical and emotional health. And our third goal for today is to develop some tools to help our kids manage everyday stress, to help them make it feel a little less overwhelming, especially as they are transitioning, from school to summer, from being high school students to young adults. So to start, we really need to kind of look at what our youth have been through in the last few years. So they've lived through events and experiences that will be foundational memories for them. They've experienced a pandemic resulting in disruption and isolation and impacting their school routines. Our kids have experienced school, remote school, hybrid options in a way that no one else can understand and empathize with them. They've lived through racial tensions in their country and riots. They've lived through some polarizing political circumstances and elections. And now they are also witnessing a war in Europe. So on top of all of this, recent violence and shootings and personal trauma experiences like domestic violence, hunger, financial insecurity, they have had a significant impact on the state of our youth mental health. The United States Surgeon General released an advisory focused on protecting youth mental health. This was even prior to COVID-19, where he made it clear that we are facing a mental health crisis in our youth. The pandemic has obviously exacerbated what we were seeing prior to 2019, and it's evident that since we're all here today, that we believe that this is a topic that needs to be addressed, and we need to work together to help support the mental health and wellness of our youth. If we seize this moment, step up for our children and their families in their moment of need, and lead with inclusion, kindness, and respect, we can lay the foundation for a healthier, more resilient, and more fulfilled nation. So we're all here because we recognize the importance of having these conversations and want to help our kids. I know you've probably heard staggering and frightening numbers, but I do want to highlight a few statistics in the next few slides to remind us why we're having this conversation tonight. So 7 in 10 teens have experienced struggles with their mental health. 45% of teens report that they've experienced excessive stress, and 55% of teens report that they've experienced anxiety. 43% of teens report that they've experienced depression. 64% of teens believe that COVID-19 will have a lasting impact on their generation's mental health. And 57% have reported that at some point in the last 12 months, they've felt sad or hopeless for almost every day for at least 2 weeks in a row, so much so that they stopped doing some of their usual activities. And 79% of our teens wish that there was an inclusive environment or safe space for people in school to talk about mental health. This statistic in particular is one that I find incredibly powerful. Our youth want to have this conversation. They want to talk about their mental health, and they want to talk to us. We need to work to break down the stigma and give them that safe space to talk about what's happening, what they're feeling, and we need to learn to listen to them. So let's start at the beginning, right? If we're going to keep referring to mental health, we need to have the same definition of what that is. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease. So health requires balance. And I really like this image of an iceberg, particularly with teens, because it's powerful when you think about mental health and teens. And unlike physical illness, where there's just so much more going on under the surface than you may see when you're looking at a teen. And mental distress is normal, it's expected, and it happens to everyone. And sometimes it happens daily. So it's a signal that you just need to solve a problem that's causing you this distress. When we discuss the mental health of our youth and the stressors that impact their mental health, there are many factors that can influence them. So in the chat, if you want to, you can feel free to put in a few factors that you think might influence the mental health of your child or any of the children that you might work with. There are many factors that can act as risk factors and have a negative impact on your mental health. There are also factors that act as a protective factor to support and promote your mental health. You can have social and economic inequalities, racism, migration, media and technology, pop culture and government. Your environment plays an impact, right? How safe your neighborhood is, whether or not you have access to green spaces, if you're eating healthy food or not, what kind of housing you live in or housing security, if you have access to healthcare, not just when you're sick, but preventative healthcare as well. Pollution, natural disasters, and climate change are all part of the environment that can impact your mental health. Your community, your relationship with your peers, students' relationship with their teachers, if you have a faith community that you are a part of and have that support or not, what the school climate is like, what kind of academic pressures your teen is under, and what kind of community support they might have. The family also can have very good relationships with parents and caregivers, can have a very positive and supportive impact on a youth's mental health. Siblings, the mental health of the family can be impacted by just one person going through a crisis. So that could also impact your mental health. Financial stability of your family, their concerns about how their family is going to be doing during these difficult times, domestic violence, trauma, and loss that they may have experienced. And at the individual level, certain things that might not even be within your control, your age, your genetics, your race, your ethnicity, your gender, sexual orientation, gender expression, any disabilities, and this could be learning disabilities or physical disabilities, what beliefs you may have, what you know or you don't know about the world around you, the attitude with which you approach things, and whether or not you've developed coping skills. All of these are factors that could either promote your mental health or they could be a factor that negatively impacts your mental health. So when we talk about stress, what are we actually talking about? Stress is the body's reaction to a challenge, which could be anything from outright physical danger to asking someone for a date or trying out for a sports team, right? The human body responds to stressors by activating the nervous system and specific hormones. A part of the brain called the hypothalamus signals the adrenal glands to produce more adrenaline and cortisol hormones and releases them into the bloodstream. The hormones speed up your heart rate, your breathing rate, your blood pressure, and metabolism. Blood vessels open wider to let more blood flow to large muscle groups, pupils dilate to improve vision, and the liver releases stored glucose to increase your body's energy. The physical response to stress kicks in much more quickly in teens than in adults because the part of the brain that can calmly assess danger and call off the stress response, the prefrontal cortex, it's not fully developed in adolescence, not until adulthood. So the stress response prepares a person to react quickly and perform well under pressure, and it can help teens be on their toes and ready to rise to a challenge. However, the stress response can cause problems when it overreacts or goes on for too long. Long-term stressful situations like coping with a parent's divorce or being bullied at school or online can produce lasting low-level stress that can wear out the body's reserves, weaken the immune system, and make an adolescent feel depleted. So how have the last couple of years impacted our teens? They're adapting to this new normal, which we keep calling the new normal, right? As summer break from school begins, or now we're halfway through it, right? The world is continuing to open up after this pandemic, and they're struggling to adapt to what the new normal life is and what that looks like for them. Adolescents and teenagers struggle with change as is, and when the pandemic began, the sudden loss of interacting with their school friends was hard. There's no book written and telling us how to go back to normal and how to go back to what life was like before all of this. And we expect them to be able to navigate this, and we're, as adults, are struggling to navigate this on our own. All in all, there are very few teens who escape the pandemic without experiencing intense amounts of stress. And I think we need to acknowledge that. Those who are already experiencing emotional challenges are now going through additional dramatic changes where their responsibilities are likely shifting back and forth. The summer break is meant to be one of the most eagerly anticipated times in a young person's life, but worryingly, it's actually emerging as one of the loneliest periods for many of them. New research has revealed more than half of teenagers feel isolated during their time off from school. While changes in technology have made staying in touch with friends easier than ever, an over-reliance on smartphones and social media can actually lead teenagers to feel more isolated because they substitute quality time with friends for texting and Snapchat and other social media apps. So by knowing what to look for, we can tell the difference between what's normal and what needs extra special care. While some stress is good, if your teen begins to display some of the signs of stress that's too much for them, they may need some help. So if they're increasingly complaining about headaches or stomach aches or tiredness, they're shutting down and withdrawing from people or activities, they're angry or irritable, lashing out at people in situations. If they're crying or seem like they're on the verge of crying, if they're feeling or expressing some hopelessness, chronic anxiety or nervousness about new situations, trying new things, changes in their sleeping and eating habits, if they're having difficulty sleeping or being what they're saying, they're too busy to eat. If they're having difficulty concentrating or if they're experimenting with substances. When the body is responding to fear and stress, it releases a hormone called cortisol, and it sends an urgent message to the body, which triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response. So what does that look like in our youth? The I'm going to try that over again. The fight, flight, or freeze response refers to a physiological and psychological response in living things and allows them to react or retreat from a threat and increases the chance of survival. This response can be triggered by various situations, like I mentioned before, asking someone out on a date, or life-threatening and emergency situations also trigger this. It's associated with that anxiety and thrilling feeling like a roller coaster or like when you watch a scary movie. This response is a primitive response. It's been hardwired into our brains. Originally, when we evolved, it was designed to make sure that we were alert and attentive during times when we were in danger or there was a threat. So if we were out gathering nuts and berries and there was a lion that came into view, this response would kick into gear and it would give us the surge of energy, like I described before, that would get us out of danger quickly and into safety and kind of ensure our survival. Super helpful when we encountered wild animals. Not something that you're going to be you're not going to see wild animals in the hallways of our high schools, right? Well, we think that teens are, but we're not going to see wild animals in life-threatening situations. But that same response, the same physiological response, is still being triggered every day. So you're still seeing that fight, which could be yelling, screaming, running away, trying to avoid a situation, or freezing, just shutting down. Stress is an emotion, but it's also felt physically in your body. You could feel anxious and afraid, angry and sad, irritable, frustrated, or depressed, and your body reacts to these feelings by having a headache, a stomach ache, indigestion, nausea. You start to feel like you're hyperventilating. You might start to sweat more. Your heart races. You might feel some aches and pains. So when you're stressed, you can recognize those symptoms in your own body. You can have difficulty sleeping. You might feel very indecisive, right? Part of that freeze is not being able to make a decision. You go kind of like what I like to call analysis paralysis. You look at all the options and you can't choose one. And you can feel like you're on the verge of tears. You're feeling very heightened emotions. Teens can quickly change moods and have normal emotional shifts during the day. We know I have a teenager, and I sometimes say, you can tell what kind of mood he is based on how the sound of his steps coming down the stairs. But there are some signs to look for that might indicate that they need more help. Sometimes if they're feeling completely lost or hopeless or uninterested in things that they were previously enjoying, it's normal and expected for teens to feel especially stressed or frustrated and overwhelmed in the summer. But we want to make sure that if they have a lingering depression or completely lose interest in things that sometimes that they enjoyed in the past, that you kind of reach out and check in. If they're feeling or behaving socially isolated, they need time to themselves to develop their sense of identity and independence. So it's not that they can't be alone. It's that if they're not able to enjoy their time outside of the home with friends, with family, they may be dealing with some depression. Some frequent outbursts or some increased aggression that you might be seeing. Adolescent years are a time to learn where those boundaries are, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And some teens tend to struggle with this. So if you see your kid frequently showing aggression, lashing out, blatantly disregarding authority, it could be time to get some help. And then if they have an inability to function normally, if they stop doing their daily functions, they sleep all day, there might be something going on in addition to the stress. So I think that it's really important for us to be open with our teens, and it's important for them to know that stress affects everyone. Everyone experiences it from time to time, and there are different types of stress. A stressor can be a one-time, short-term occurrence, or it can repeatedly happen over a long period of time. Some people cope with stress more effectively and recover more quickly than others, and that's okay. Not all stress is bad. And I think it's important for us to repeat that to them. It's not bad to be stressed. It's not bad to have these feelings. In a dangerous situation, this stress signal is the way that they keep themselves safe. Like I said, their pulse quickens, you breathe faster, your muscles tense, and your brain uses more oxygen to solve the problems. And so all of these functions are aimed at keeping them safe and in response to the stress. In non-life-threatening situations, the stress can motivate people, like when they have a test or an interview for a new job or give a presentation, that heart rate, you're a little bit more sharp, you're a little bit more alert, and that can help you be more successful. We do want our kids to understand that long-term stress can harm their health. Coping with the impact of chronic stress can be challenging because the source of the long-term stress is more constant. And so your body never gets a real clear signal that it's okay to return to normal. And so with chronic stress, those same life-saving reactions in the body can disturb your immune, digestive, cardiovascular, sleep, and reproductive systems. Some people may experience mostly digestive symptoms. I'm sure we've all heard or had a stomach ache when we've been scared or stressed about something, and so have our kids. And I'm sure that many of you have heard of your child complaining about a stomach ache before school, when they have a test or a project. Others have stress headaches, right? You are unable to sleep because your mind is just keeping on going with whatever is causing you that stress. You can be angry or irritable. And over time, this continued strain on your body can contribute to some serious health problems. There are definitely ways that you can manage stress on a daily basis. Taking these steps to manage your stress can reduce the risk of the negative health risks. It's important to help our teens recognize what are the signs of stress in their body, and then they can start to cope for those and respond to those and know what to expect and know how to handle it. And so it's important to start the conversation and get proper health care for any new problems that might arise. getting regular exercise, even just 30 minutes of going for a walk, can help boost their mood and improve their health. And, you know, as I said before, teens need to get independent and find themselves. And so getting them out of the house, away from us a little, gives them a chance to feel a little bit more independent and gives them some space to kind of just be themselves and not what we think they should be. It's good to encourage your teen to try a relaxing activity. You can try to incorporate meditation or relaxation or breathing exercises if that works for them, or you can be whatever you and your teen find relaxing. Personally, I don't find any of those activities very relaxing. I don't find breathing or meditation to be relaxing. I can't really get myself there. But for myself, going for a walk or going for a bike ride is a good way for me to get that relaxing. So you have to find what works for you, what works for your teen, and kind of model it for them. It's not going to be the same, and it's not going to look the same for everyone. Our kids need our help to set goals and their priorities. Everything might feel like it needs to happen right now, but most likely there are things that they can prioritize, right? They can decide what needs to get done now and what can wait. Who do they need to talk to right now and who can wait? You have to teach them to say no to new tasks. And if you feel like they're taking on too much and they're overloaded, you want to try to be mindful that try to have them be mindful of what they've accomplished at the end of the day and not what they've been unable to do. And it's really important for our teens to stay connected. It's important for them to keep in touch with people who can provide support and practical help. It's important for them to just feel connected to other people. That connection is a really great way to help cope with stress. So you want to make sure that the people around them know what's possibly causing some stress for them, and then they can be a source of support for them as well. And if they feel overwhelmed by stress, you feel like you are overwhelmed and don't know how to help them, you can always ask for help. You should seek help immediately if your teen has suicidal thoughts, if they're feeling overwhelmed or feel like they can't cope, or you find out that they're using substances to help reduce their stress, and your doctor and your medical professionals can really be a good source to help provide recommendations for that. So what should you be looking for in your high school students? Like I said before, increased complaints of headaches, stomach aches. They're not just trying to get out of school or get out of camp for no reason. They might be shutting down or withdrawing from people and activities. They're irritable, they're crying, they're feeling hopeless, they have chronic anxiety. Anytime you talk about going out somewhere, they get really anxious and nervous. Any changes in their behavior is something that you want to really pay attention to. You want to make sure that they're having difficulty with their daily routines. Like if you have chores that you expect them to do in the summer and they're not getting those done, there might be something going on. Difficult, and not just their usual, they're tired and they don't want to do their chores. If they're having difficulty engaging with family, friends, adults, camp, if they're just kind of sitting out and being the loner, that might be something to pay attention to. Personality changes. And you might want to, if they have recurrent thoughts, recurrent nightmares, recurrent questions and concerns and worrying over and over about certain things. On the other hand, if they're kind of numb to anything that's happening or anything that you try to talk to them about or they hear in the news, might be something to be concerned about as well. So it's important for us all to remember that mental health challenges are real, they're common, and they're treatable. And struggling with mental health does not mean that you're broken or you did something wrong. And it's important for us to really reiterate that to our teens. Mental health is shaped by many factors, including biology and life experiences, and there are many ways that mental health challenges can be addressed. So you want some ways to take care of yourself, that self-care. And I'm not talking about like mindful Mondays or wellness Wednesdays or, doing yoga, even though I have a picture of yoga up there. It's about really investing in healthy relationships. That social connection, that being connected to other people is a really great source of stress relief and a source of well-being. We kind of move really fast in our lives, and kids, we push them from one place to the next, from camp to this to that. And we want to make sure that and we sometimes prioritize other things over that quality time with people. And so we want to make sure that we have space and time, and that our kids make space and time in their lives for the people that they care about, their family, their friends, and find people who can support and care about what they've been going through, and they feel comfortable having open conversations with. You want to make sure that they're getting involved in group activities, outdoor activities, camp, after school programs during the summer, during school, any mentorship programs, somewhere where they can connect with other people and find a support system. You want to learn and practice techniques to manage your stress, and try to listen to your body. It's important to listen to what your body needs. So if you're tired, you might need to take a pause. You might not, if they're complaining that they're tired, maybe slow down, maybe give them a day off, maybe give them a chance to breathe and just be. You want to learn and practice techniques to manage stress and try to recognize situations that may be emotionally challenging for you and come up with strategies to manage those emotions. So if you find it stressful to read the news, maybe check the news less often, take a break for a day or two, say that I'm not going to read the news on Thursdays, and maybe keep your notifications off throughout the day, avoid looking at negative stories before bed. Those kind of techniques can kind of help you disengage from what's causing you that stress. You want to be intentional about your use of social media and how your children use social media, video games, and other technologies. You might want to consider how much time they're spending online. Is it taking away from healthy offline activities like exercising, seeing friends, reading, sleeping? What content are they consuming and how does it make them feel? Maybe talk to them about what they're doing on their phones or what games they're playing and see how they are talking about it. And are they online because they want to be or because they feel like they have to be in order to stay connected and know what's going on with their friends? It's always okay to ask for help. So you want to make sure that your youth can find trusted adults, friends, family members to talk to. So if you suspect that your teen or someone that they know is being bullied, for example, you want to help them find someone that they can talk to. If they're struggling to manage negative emotions, you can reach out to, during the school year, you can reach out to school personnel, nurse, counselor, teacher, maybe a friend's parent, right? If you know your kid's social circle, maybe some of those parents you can reach out to and say, hey, do you know what's going on? Have you seen this? Maybe a coach if they're on a school team, a faith leader if you're part of a faith community, or someone else that they look up to. You want, looking into therapy or counseling resources to get support when something causes distress or interferes with their life is always an option. And reaching out to others can be hard and it takes courage on your part, but it's worth it. And the effort reminds us all that we're not alone. And it's a good modeling behavior for your kid. So if they're having trouble reaching out, maybe you reaching out shows them that first step is the hardest, but it's worth it. And by doing that, you're being the best role model that you can be for them. And taking care of your own mental health and your physical health is important for them to see you doing. It's important for them to learn behaviors and habits from what they see around them. And those are good habits for them to see you participating in. You can model good habits by talking to them and about the importance of their mental health, seeking help when you need it, and showing positive ways you deal with stress so that they can learn from you. Taking care of your own mental health can look like taking breaks, getting enough sleep, exercising, eating balanced meals, maintaining a regular routine, and staying connected with your family and friends. And them seeing you do that is just going to show them that it's okay for them to do that too. All of these conversations are important because they help us erase the stigma around mental health. The more we talk to our students, our youth, our children about how our mental health is and how we handle and cope with certain situations, the more comfortable they'll be to talk about it and the more they'll have the access to the language that they need to express themselves. So it's important to have these frequent conversations. You want to engage in frequent emotional check-ins starting early with them. If you notice something seems off with them, ask them about it. Don't just watch, engage with them. They may be more receptive to sharing with you. Be open and give them information about the ways that you handle similar situations. Tell them what you would do and what works for you. And if you don't know the answer or solution to what's stressing your teen, it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, I don't know, that really sucks. I don't know what I would do, or I don't have an answer for that, but maybe we can work together and figure out the best way forward. You want to make sure that you're listening and you're validating their experiences, right? Just because they're a teen, it doesn't mean their feelings and their experiences any less valid. You want to make sure you're creating a safe and non-judgmental space for them to talk to you. You want to validate what they're going through. They can feel ashamed to talk to about their worries or their moods or behavioral problems. They can also feel like you have a lot on your plate, and so they don't want to burden you. And in the last few years, we've expected them to act more grown up, handle their work and what's happening in the world around them. And they may not want to disappoint you because we've now put this expectation on them that they can do it, that they can handle what's going on. It's really important for us to listen to them, that we want to listen with curiosity, with empathy, and we want to be engaged with them when we're listening to them. You want to be mindful that we really cannot empathize with everything that they've gone through in the last couple of years. None of us had remote school. None of us had school feel like an unsafe place. So it's really important to listen to them and to acknowledge that that's how they feel. And you want to have conversations about emotions, thoughts, behaviors. Share your emotions and thoughts. Let them know how you feel or how certain things make you feel, and make it okay for them to have those feelings as well. It's important to help develop those open and understanding relationships, and that can be critical to helping them cope with their stress. And you want to include family. Anything that's going on with your teen should not be like a dirty family secret. You can get support from family members, and they can be an important resource for you because you can share what you've gone through, what your teen has gone through, what other family members have gone through, and then you can work together and find out what works best for everybody. And you can try to make an analogy to a relatable medical problem. Mental health concerns are also physical conditions that start with the brain. So you can try to relate to them that it's not something wrong with them. It's something that they can work with. And you want to give them concrete explanations. Don't be vague. Children can understand mental health issues better if they're concrete and if there's a concrete explanation. Stigma and misinformation often reinforce kids feeling that their struggle is their fault, that somehow they're lacking, or that they're different. So you want to make it clear that they're not alone, that it's something that everyone must learn to cope with, and emphasize what their strengths are, what skills they've already developed, so that they can see that this is a stress and this is a struggle and it's not all that there is. And talk about your self-care. Talk about how you do self-care. Mental health conditions are a complex interaction between biology, psychology, and environmental factors, and it's important to listen to your body and your mind. Sometimes it's hard to know what to say to your teen if they're sad, irritable, stressed. So if you have something that you found that works when you talk to your kid, please share it in the chat. These are just some starting points for what you can say to let your teen know that they're not alone. I love you, right? This is the first thing on the list because it's the most important thing. There is a difference between classic and cliche, and this is classic because it's the foundation of everything else. I'm saying it even though I hope you know it's true. I'm saying it even though you might give me an eye roll in return. I'm saying it because I want you to hear it, and I'll repeat it until you do. Tell them to take a deep breath, a slow breath in, slow breath out. You might have to fight yourself to do what feels like nothing when what you want to do is something, but the point is to hit the pause button and reset. Let their racing mind and emotions slow down, and so you can help them fix the problem and not feed into it with more emotion and being more agitated. Tell them that you're proud of them. It lets them know that how you feel about them does not hinge on how the test, the paper, project, semester, the game, application, interview, audition, or team tryout turns out. Entirely apart from any of this, I'm proud of who you are and of who you're becoming. I'm proud of what you've already done and the effort you've put into doing it. This is something that I repeat to my teenager all the time. I want him to know that I'm proud of how hard he works and not the results that he gets. We're not in this for the end game, and the process and the journey is what he puts into something is equally, if not more important. Tell them this is not their whole story. Remind them that whatever is going on right now, it's not their entire life. And it's not all there will ever be in their life. This is part of your reality, but it's not all of it. There's more to do today and more to the future than this. It's really hard for a teenager to have perspective. So it's important for us to help them get that perspective. Tell them how they feel at this moment is not how you're going to feel forever. You're not going to be stuck here for the rest of your life. This is not your new normal. I know getting to the other side might seem like it's taking an eternity, but at some point you'll suddenly realize you're looking back on this instead of staring straight at it. And remember, tell them to remember how you've gotten through tough times before. This isn't the first bump in the road. This isn't the first time they've felt this way, and it won't be the last. They're likely to feel this way again, but so far they've had 100% success rate of surviving it, right? So don't let this current struggle make you forget your past successes. Just tell them to do the next thing. If they're stuck on something, the next right thing you can figure out to do. The next thing that needs to be done. Just skip over that item on their checklist and do what's next. The next one thing, not the next 10 things, just do something else. Ask them if there's anything you can do to help. We know that they have to figure it out on their own and we can't do it for them. And it's not your job to fix their stressor, but it is something that maybe you can help with. Maybe just telling you about it. Telling them that you're here for them. You're not going to check out of the situation. You're there for them. You're thinking about them. You're thinking about the situation. They're thinking about it all the time too. So life is full of changes, but there's some constants you can count on, and your love, that's something that they can always count on. And last but not least, how about some ice cream? Pizza. I mean, they're called comfort foods for a reason, right? So maybe let's take a break and just go get something that'll make you feel better. So when the school year takes a pause, some underlying issues in kids can still progress, right? But now they're not being seen every day by teachers and various different perspectives. And some of these issues can go unnoticed. So things that you might want to do, find an activity that you could do together. Even if it's something small, like a walk after dinner, this is a great opportunity for your child to open up to you. Maintain a routine or structure, and I'm sure we've all heard that. While summer may be a nice reprieve from academic expectations, and it's natural to spend more time relaxing, slowing down, it's still helpful to maintain some structure throughout the days and weeks, as well as to engage in different activities. You want to monitor overall patterns of behavior. So for many kids, they enjoy sleeping during vacation, right? Especially teens. They get up so early for school that summer vacation is their chance to turn off the alarm and sleep in. But as long as it doesn't interfere with other things that they're doing or other things that you're trying to get them to engage with, their friends or hobbies, it's likely not an issue that they're sleeping in. However, if they're sleeping for the majority of the day, avoiding engaging with others and appear to be irritable, then that might be something to be concerned about. You want to watch out for avoidance or anxiety. When someone's struggling, they often avoid or disengage from things. So while you may see decreases in some activities, there are often increases in some more solitary, sedentary activities. They may sleep, just want to play video games, stay on the couch watching TV, and they just don't really even want to talk. And some signs of distress that you might want to keep an eye out for over the summer is, like I said, on the verge of tears, tearfulness, irritability. They're restless. They don't know what to do with themselves. They talk negatively about themselves or have a negative view of themselves or what they're doing or what their summer vacation is like. And if they're really worried about the negative outcomes of their future. So that's what I have to share with you for our school's Mental Health Resource and Training Center webinar for tonight. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I think Whitney was keeping track of the chat or questions and answers because I can't see that while I'm sharing.
I did. So we had a little bit of action in the chat. Someone really likes your helpful how-to reminders, right? Sometimes we forget it's the simplest statements or comments which can really have the biggest impact. So I too really appreciated those reminders that you shared. But we did have one question come in anonymously into the Q&A. So it says, how can schools be a safe space for students to speak about mental health? All school staff are mandated reporters, and an innocent conversation could turn a family's life upside down.
I think that we need to remember that, those mandated reporters, they are trained and they know what the difference is between a kid being like, I'm down, or I'm feeling really stressed about, choosing college or my junior year, to like really having the very difficult self-harm, negative language, talking about situations that may have happened in the home. They're not going to take a kid who comes in and is like, I'm so stressed out, and cause, this fear of turning your family upside down, right? They're mandated reporters for when a child comes and says, I was touched inappropriately. This happened to me. I was beaten. I've done, I'm really feeling like I want to hurt myself, and obviously they're not going to come out and say it exactly like that, but they're able to to figure out, based on the context, whether or not, they're just having a rough day and whether or not there's really an issue. And I think, like I said in the webinar, the thing is that there's 9 months that the kids are seeing these teachers 5 days a week. They can see when it's a change in the behavior, when there's really something going on, or if it's just, something that can pass.
Right. And I think too, just remembering the goal for everyone at the school is to just keep the child's well-being and safety in mind. And, the right people will pass that information along to the right responsible mental health staff at the school, like you said, who are perfectly trained to do those crisis assessments and to do the dirty work, right, of figuring out the next steps, and if referrals need to be made, or if this is more of a support conversation. So as always, we really encourage you to just build those relationships with the people at your school, keep those conversations open and flowing. So your students.
And I think that those relationships and those conversations can go two ways. I think that it would be really great for teachers to reach out and just introduce themselves to parents, obviously, and talk about what's going on in school. But also, if there's something going on at home, it would help for you to let your teachers know, and because they see your kids, and whether or not they're handling it at home and they're different in school, it's nice to give the teachers a heads up and say, hey, they just lost their grandparent, I just want to let you know, maybe look out for something that they might not be responsive, or, if they're struggling with this, or they're having, or just reach out, they're having a lot of anxiety over all this college talk, and I'm just, concerned that, they're going to be shut down if this comes up. It's okay to tell the teachers what's going on. Also, you see your kids at home, they see your kids at school. It's a different scenario, it's a different situation, but we want to support the whole child. We want to make sure that they're getting all of the support that they can. And if the teacher is the more comfortable person that they are to talk to, then that's fine. My son found a really good relationship with his middle school guidance counselor. So even over the summer, I would contact her and be like, hey, can you reach out to him? Because he's seeming a little sad and down. And she would give him a call. So it's important to have that one person, and that relationship goes both ways, right? Because I reached out to her and let her know that something was going on at home.
All right. And that's definitely helpful. And it looks like we have some validation here in the chat. Someone says, teachers sincerely appreciate those heads up. They provide a different context for us to view the child's behavior, which can help us provide the right kind of support. So absolutely, like with so much of our messaging, just being proactive and not waiting until something is in full-blown mental health challenge or full-blown crisis mode. We'd like to stay informed and proactive when possible. But just a friendly reminder to folks, this is an opportunity. If you do have any questions, you can raise your hand using that raise the hand feature, and we can unmute you and you can share, or you can pop those into the Q&A. We did save some space here at the ends, but we also know that it is a very priceless time of the evening. So we will stay for a few more minutes to see if anyone has any additional questions or comments. And then we'll work on closing out. And like we did mention, we're going to provide some additional resources that we'll post with the recording. We just want to have that available for you folks. So check back sometime next week or so, and maybe that will all be up on our website. And we have a lot of exciting things coming up as well in the back to school area. So please stay tuned for our postings and emails and newsletters if you've signed up for them. A lot of good information and save the dates coming through for our events in August. So I'm just checking the chat and the Q&A to see if
I'm just putting my email into the chat. So if anybody wants to reach out for some more resources or any of the resources where I found statistics or anything else, or has any questions after this, anything that comes up, you can feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to chat about this or anything else.
Great. And I'm not seeing anything else in here, but I'm just going to drop our webinar link into the chat one more time, just in case folks want to see that. So this is where you can find all of the archived webinars from our series. We have quite the stack there. So feel free to explore and do any of those self-paced recordings for any of those up.
Oh, I think I was waiting to see if Whitney would come back, but I think that she froze. So somebody asked in the chat, in the Q&A, if they can get a certificate of participation. My email is in the chat. So if you need or want a certificate of participation, just email me and I will work with our program manager to see that you get it. If there's no other questions that I'm seeing, then I will say that you can have 10 minutes back to your evening. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight.